Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today for the NCLA webinar. We are so excited to have some amazing folks with us today. And I'm Rachel Mann. I'm joining you from Phoenix, Arizona. I am the Director of Member Engagement for NCLA. And we'll have the other folks introduce themselves in just a moment, but I do want to mention that the chat is available for you to share any questions that you have. And let's see, I'm going to admit a couple of people let's see. All right, there we go. All right, and welcome to those of you who are just now joining in. I'm going to find a way to disable the waiting room in just a second. But again, yes, so please feel free to share any questions that you have in the chat. And we'll do a little Q&A at the end where if you would like, you can unmute and ask questions or share them in the chat for me to ask to our guests. This will be shared out on our YouTube channel for NCLA. So please feel free to share that recording with anyone who may benefit from it. So whether it's your CTE teachers or just folks in the community, so that we can make what's happening in CTE and the current technical education community visible, because there are great things happening that people just don't necessarily know about. And that's important. All right, and we have Kathy joining us. One second. All right, so what I would like to do is just to go ahead and get started by having each of our panelists share a little bit about themselves, what they're doing, how they got involved in this program. And then we will, from there, and during that time, I'll also share their bio in the chat so that anything that they don't mention, you'll be able to see the great stuff that they're doing. And they'll also share with you their contact information so that you can reach out to them directly and learn more about the program or maybe collaborate on some things as well. So let's see, Harry, I think that from what I understand, you're the brainchild behind this partnership. So do you mind getting started with introducing yourself first? And then each person can just unmute and chime in after Harry's done.
Sure. Hi, I'm Harry Wallahan, and I teach at Metro Technology Centers here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I've been a teacher for about 17 to 18 years now. And I'm nationally board certified. I have a master's degree in educational leadership along the way. But my early bachelor's was in musical theater. So I came from coming into this as a singer and an entertainer and a director that's always loved film, making movies and running my production in my high school program. And that's the way I really had kind of a sneak peek on the front row of film, because my aunt was a still photographer. So she would be the one that was taking the pictures behind the scenes and for the movie posters and things. And so I got to be sitting right next to a lot of really awesome directors, such as Richard Linklater, who won an Oscar for The Boy's Life, and then Robert Zemeckis, who was famous for like Back to the Future, and Sidney Pollack out of Africa, Christopher Guest, Robert Altman. I think Robert Altman, I was on this movie. It was actually the first movie that I ever got to walk into a soundstage. And so that it was just like walking in a Willy Wonka candy factory. I remember kind of walking in and from outside into this just big concrete building. And when I walked in, it was like I stepped into another world. So that early on at age 10, I just realized like, oh, this is how this magic is made on these sound stages. So I had a really early peek at sound stages, which has become a big part of what we're doing here in Oklahoma now. And so from that experience, film's just been ingrained in my head, just having that front row seat to big budget movies. And I got to go out to LA and watch movies being made on these huge budgets. I'd be sitting in a room with Meryl Streep and Bruce Willis and Robert Zemeckis while they're filming a thing. And at the end of the day, I'd go and watch what they call dailies in the business, where you would watch the film that was shot the day before. And they decide, like, did we capture what we needed to? And that was the way things were done. It was like old projection running things. And so what an awesome way to learn the business. And now bringing it into the classroom, making these collaborations. I also am the director of deadCenter University, which is part of the deadCenter Film Festival and our partnership that's founded and what we've done for almost 7 years together. And that is bringing in high school students from all across the state of Oklahoma and bringing them into an area where they can they might be in a rural district where they don't even have maybe even theater or anything that is even art wise. And now they can come in and work with these professional directors of photography, stunt guys, other directors that are making things, and get to spend the day with them and professionals in our business because of deadCenter University. And then at Metro Tech, I just love being able to make the business and be able to plug in directly with our students into the industry. And that's the key thing. What makes my program successful is having that opportunity to plug in with our partners and to make things.
Hi, everyone. I'll go next. My name is Yusuf Kazemi. I'm the Outreach and Production Manager for the Oklahoma Film and Music Office. I've been with the office for over 10 years now. Similar to Harry, I graduated with a degree in theater, so there must be something about these theater folks getting into film. But I'm happy to be with the office. I started as an administrative assistant after I graduated, and then kind of worked my way up, shadowed under our person who did locations for the office, meaning they were responsible for helping showcase locations across Oklahoma for films the state was trying to recruit. And that's a large part of my job now, along with community outreach, workforce education outreach. We're all about promoting the state's workforce, education, and infrastructure. The mission of our office, and we're a state agency under the Department of Commerce, is to promote Oklahoma as a viable hub for film and television. We do this through a number of ways. Again, the workforce, infrastructure, and education components I mentioned, but also the administration of the state's film rebate program. And what that is the state offers an incentive to attract film and television to Oklahoma, so that any money that is spent locally on workforce, hotel nights, businesses, rentals, any local spend, the state recognizes the impact of that and gives a percentage back. And that is what our office administers. We've been around for over 40 years, and we have had the pleasure of collaborating with all of the panelists here today in different aspects. And we're excited to tell you a little bit about what's going on in Oklahoma's film industry and be with you all today. So thank you for having us.
I suppose it's my turn. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Picard Davis. I am the executive director over at deadCenter Film. We started about 22 years ago as a film festival with the idea that the filmmakers that existed in Oklahoma would have at least one place to connect every year. Since then, we have grown into a full year-round organization and really are exploring our options in the world of education. We have found that it's a lot easier to reach students, particularly in the K through 12 area, using film as kind of the lens that they view all of the other skills that they're learning, if you will. And I started with the organization as a volunteer many years ago, and I've been executive director for a year now. And prior to that was the director of operations and the festival director. So I've had a foot in all of the areas of our organization. Last year, we updated our mission just a teeny tiny bit, but we are here to inspire, promote, and celebrate creativity and community through film, however that looks like. And we have partnered with everyone on this panel throughout the years. Film and Music Office has been a very long-term strategic partner, and then Metro Tech, of course, about 7 years ago, we really just solidified how awesome of a partnership it was with deadCenter University. And Harry has just he's been the greatest in making that have legs beyond just a really cool program. And so we're really here as part of a collaborative effort to reinforce this workforce that is emerging here in Oklahoma.
This is Cindy Friedemann, and I'm an administrator at Metro Technology Centers. And it is just like a dream come true to see this type of work, to see the panel coming together, to have been able to recognize deadCenter recently at the state of Oklahoma's annual Partners for Progress banquet. We are just super excited to have the relationships that we have. The exciting thing to me about this is I've always believed that while we have career and technical education, we also need the arts, because that touches the side of the brain, another side of the brain that is active in most minds, whether you're doing technical work or whether you're doing creative work. And this project to me has helped us really reach a new level at our technology center. My background comes from, I was a vocational student in high school, and in my community, we had an apparel manufacturing facility, and I wanted to design women's clothing. So I studied in our career tech program, but I learned how to work on sewing machines. I learned how to fix them. I learned how to thread them, and I learned how to operate them, because that's what you do in career and technical education. I didn't learn much about the design side, and that was my dream. But I got so many good skills that when I went on to college and on to my master's in fine arts, I was able to show my instructors how to do things with the factory equipment, because I had learned so much on the technical side. Fast forward a few moves later to Oklahoma, where there was no apparel industry to speak of. And I kind of pivoted and went into vocational education or career tech education as a profession. And it's been the love of my life to be able to work in so many ways and make a difference. And I'm super excited to see the young energy that's coming in and changing the face of career tech through these types of partnerships. And I know Kathy Story will be our next person to speak. She was having a little bit of a challenge getting on, so I hope she knows that we're doing introductions right now. And so I'll toss it to Kathy, who is a great friend and really also part of the secret sauce of what has worked so well in Oklahoma in the film industry.
Oh. Mute. That's the story of 2020, and it's the story of 2021. We're on mute. Okay, I think everybody can hear me now. I am Kathy Story. I work with Metro Technology Centers. I am a special projects coordinator here. I've been with Metro Tech for the past 7 years. I plan and deploy strategies for new initiatives and business partnerships essential for district growth. Part of what I do with my job currently is our deadCenter film program, a 2-day high school intensive film program that I know I'll talk about later. However, I also served as our executive director of our Metro Tech Foundation. In the past, I worked for another technology center in our marketing department with event planning and student recruitment. But I do have a passion for film in my life, because 30 years ago, when I was very young, I worked for a talent agency here in Oklahoma City, and we were a leading agency that worked with casting directors from Dallas and LA and some pretty high-level ad agencies here locally. And we videotaped, when it was actually videotaped, talent for auditions in Dallas, in Kansas, training videos in Walker, Texas Ranger, and there was a whole bunch of others. So that's really where I really began having a passion for film. And so I'm so glad to see it coming full circle from the 80s now. And so I'm just really happy to be here and share what I know and my contributions to Metro Tech for the film industry here in Oklahoma.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much to each of you. I am so excited about hearing even more about what you're doing in this partnership, and really appreciate your time today. For those of you who have joined us since the start of the webinar, just wanted to let you know that you're welcome to share any questions that you have in the chat or introduce yourself in the chat, and we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. And also this is being recorded and will be shared out. The first question that I have for the panelists, and Yusuf, I'd love to start with you for this. Describe the landscape for film prior to 2018 in Oklahoma. And Yusuf, I'll let you take that off and then each person can join in.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as mentioned in my brief introduction, I've been here with the office for over 10 years now. And so I've seen, as all the panelists have here too, how much the industry has changed, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years. And to say it's grown has been an understatement. Back in 2010, 2011, we would probably get 5 or 6 film or TV productions a year that might utilize the rebate program. And since 2019, we've probably had over 33 or 34 annually use the program. Last year, despite the pandemic, which was obviously devastating, here in Oklahoma, our governor declared the motion picture and recording industry an essential business. And so what that did, it was allowed those industries to continue in our state while many other places across the country were shut down. And so we even had record-breaking numbers last year, considering the climate around the country, including new eyes that were looking at us that hadn't really been paying attention before. And so we are kind of at a very pivotal moment here where everything so many of us have been working for is finally coming to fruition and poised to continue growing. And not only has the number of projects per year grown here in state, which is putting more people to work, but so have the opportunities for infrastructure and education. We've had 2 new sound stages open in Oklahoma recently. For those that may not know what a sound stage is, this is the building that is outfitted and designed specifically for film and TV production, so you can build and replicate those sets in a controllable environment versus filming on location where you may be dealing with weather and other elements. And so to be able to have sound stages, particularly as it relates to larger studio films that require builds like that, it's pretty impressive, and we're excited to be at that point. And then on the education front too, there truly is a path for everyone now in Oklahoma to pursue more of what they want to learn, whether it's college, career tech, high school programs, other things. There's so many options. And so we are very, very excited about the growth, where we're going to go. Our current fiscal year right now, the industry's projected to have an impact of over $161 million here in Oklahoma. And that's money being spent directly here in Oklahoma, and local jobs and careers being created is in the thousands. So we're excited, and our leadership often refers to the film industry here in Oklahoma as a 3-legged stool. Those legs being the incentive, the infrastructure, and the workforce. And so in order for Oklahoma to sustain its current momentum, we have the incentive, we have the infrastructure, and we have to keep growing the workforce in order to maintain our locals working on film and being able to support these productions.
So my take on prior to 2018, I think there's several things that you'd measure where the growth of the business is happening. And I would say the availability of the business has changed as well based off of the technology. So when we talk about cinema cameras, the cinema cameras were the big film cameras with the big reel-to-reel things, and those you'd had to rent those. I mean, those you'd have to rent them from like what's Panavision or somebody like that to be able to have those on your set. What's changed since I've started teaching really has been the technology and being able to get a true cinema camera in the hands of every different level, including instructors. So our camera that we're filming in the studio next door to me, we're shooting with an 8K helium red camera. Well, that's 8 times higher than high dev, and we have it in our classroom next door. It's the same camera that they would shoot the Marvel movies on, or any big blockbuster movie, to your indie films. And so that's one thing and we're also talking about the technology, and now we're getting into virtual production. So along with what's going on, I think the technology is a big piece of what's become available to filmmakers as well to help that growth. And we just need to be ready for it, basically. And so that's what we've been doing is in the state of Oklahoma, be ready for the business because it's at our doorstep. And so one of the big maneuvers that we made was to take out representatives from our state on both sides and our educators and our director of the Oklahoma Film Commission, and we all took a trip out to Atlanta because that is big business for them in that state. And it was really to look at what was making them successful, how did they grow that market on the educational side of things, and let's take a look at the sound stages. So we had the opportunity to visit like 4 or 5 big studios to smaller size studios, which they would call boutique studios, and look at those business models and who was coming in there to film and talk to the presidents of each one of those, from Pinewood Studios, where they're having the huge Marvel movies, to Screen Gems, where they're shooting something where Netflix is basically taking over all of their stages. And then we also went to where The Walking Dead was being filmed and talked to those producers in that town to see what that money, what that incentive that they offer in that state has done for those communities and how it's created jobs in that state. And then we also made a stop at the Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Film Institute there, and how they propagated their curriculum across there. It started with career tech there. Right? That's where it started. And then finally they were able to work that curriculum where they all kind of got on the same page with the higher education levels. And now it's really, that just helped build that infrastructure to be able to support what they're doing in Atlanta. So we brought all that information back, and it helped us, one, with that information to raise our film incentive to start with to the next level, which was 8 million. And it opened up more opportunity for smaller and other productions to film in the state of Oklahoma to take advantage with the larger incentive at that time. And from that point on, I really saw on my side more opportunities for our students to be able to get in with local brick and mortar things that were able to take advantage of that incentive and to film feature films and commercial work. And then from then, that's just snowballed. The works, there was more and more movies, more and more productions. And now we've raised our film incentive up to, well, I guess that's the next question, so I won't necessarily go there. But that's what I saw as far as what has been changing in the landscape.
I was just going to add one little nugget to that, if y'all don't mind too, that I just remembered. We have 2 sound stages, but of course we have more opening on the way. And in addition to us being the statewide film office, we now have a lot of local film offices popping up in communities to support, including the Tulsa Film and Music Office. We have the Cherokee Nation Film Office, which supports indigenous efforts, not only just Cherokee, but across all tribes. And just wanted to mention that too.
And to add on to Yusuf's thing about the different, they're all talking about offering their own incentive things to come and film in their area, whether it's the Cherokee Nation is talking about having an incentive on top of the incentive to come film in their areas, and Tulsa the same. And so it's kind of interesting to see how, competition's good, right? Get people who want to film in your area of the woods.
Yeah, I want to add that even though we've been building to this for such a long time, it really is just the past 4 or 5 years that we have had enough work to support someone having essentially a full-time job. I can remember back when I graduated from college thinking I'm going to have to go out to California to work on films if I'm not comfortable working on a project to project basis here in Oklahoma, because there was maybe 1 or 2 films a year that if you were lucky to get on, that was the goal. But for a lot of people, that's not enough to like put dollars behind their education to go do. So this truly is a very exciting time, and the infrastructure that has been laid down while it goes 40 years back with the Film Commission truly is all of the collaborations that have happened in even the past 10 years are what's allowing for this, what appears to be very rapid growth right now.
All right, and the next question is discuss the newly signed legislation that incentivizes growth in the film industry and why this is important. And Yusuf, we'll start with you again for this one.
Sure, and Harry kind of hinted at this during his last answer. So within the last 10 years, our incentive program has had some changes. And with those changes, as the program has become more lucrative, so have the opportunities to bring in more film and create more workforce. Just if for those of you who may not understand exactly what an incentive is, a film incentive, you should know that they're offered across the world and particularly across the country. Oklahoma was one of the first states in the country to offer film incentives, and that previous program was called the Compete with Canada Act. The reason it was titled that is because Canada had started luring productions out of Hollywood and New York by offering incentives. And when the states started realizing, hey, there might be something for us in this too, Oklahoma began offering a film incentive. And it was a very small and conservative program at the time. I believe this was 2001, but it was enough for other states like New Mexico and Georgia to pay attention. In fact, New Mexico modeled their program after us. And you may know that they've since welcomed shows like Breaking Bad, which have been huge hits. Georgia is home to Walking Dead and many of the Marvel movies. They've seen studios be built and move and relocate to Atlanta for these reasons. And the reasons their programs are so attractive and welcoming to this caliber of film is that oftentimes their programs don't have limits, meaning like an annual amount of funding, or if they do, they're in the very high millions. And so at the moment, as of actually July 1st, the state has a new film program called the Filmed in Oklahoma Act of 2021. We have now 30 million to offer per year, which is great for us. It's the largest it's ever been. And the big thing about this program is that it's now offering uplifts for filming in rural communities, for the use of soundstage, for music and post-production in Oklahoma. And particularly now too, there's an apprenticeship requirement, which means these productions based on their size of crew have to then hire X amount of apprentices to work under these key people. And we're very excited about that provision because it is going to help further the workforce here. And especially if you're bringing in an Academy Award-winning costume designer for a film, having this apprentice, this shadowing program work is going to impart some wisdom, leave behind some skills, and then keep those skills here in Oklahoma and further that growth and development. So we're very excited about the new legislation. We just opened the applications earlier this week. We've had a lot of submissions. It's going to be an exciting time. We're still processing a lot of it and learning the system ourselves. But it is everything I think that will help move us forward with regards to film, television, and workforce opportunities and continued growth.
I think I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Yusuf said here. I think also when you talk about this film incentive and where it's grown, that didn't just happen, right? And the thing about our business, the film business, the TV business, besides the news and some of those other jobs that also tap into what we do, it is kind of the secret service business. I mean, it's secret. Like, you don't necessarily want people to know, like, hey, Brad Pitt's down the street from you. Let's all gather and go watch Brad Pitt do his thing. So, often in our business, people are not communicating like, hey, we're going to be filming over here, over here. And so what it doesn't do is it doesn't put your industry in the limelight often. And so I think there was a concerted effort amongst our community and our office, our film office and music office, to put a face on what we do. And to me, that's really helped the public understand, like, oh, this is a viable business. I can get a job here in this business. It's not make-believe. It's not Hollywood. It's not somewhere else. It can be here, and it is here, and here's what's going on. And I think that was a big push for our legislation too, to understand, like, it's not the person just behind the camera. It's not just the person it's the hair and makeup, it's the construction. It is so many different levels. It's security, it's and how that builds out into the community. And so to be able to get to where we are right now with the incentive, it was messaging and making sure that was happening. And now more than ever, the sound stages help us put a finger on where business is happening sometimes, because when we're out in rural Oklahoma, we're at this home over here in Guthrie or someplace in some town, it's hard to put that finger on it. And the things that for me, the sound stages allow us to do is go, that's a place where they're making movies and it's always happening there, or that studio over there, things are happening there. And it helps you understand like, oh, there's really a place where people are making things. So all those things together really helped us get to where we are now, and continuing to message and make sure that people know that you exist. I think that is an effort we have to do in the film business and tell our stories.
100%. And if I can just add on to that, messaging is such a big component. I think when people think of film and movie, they think of Leonardo DiCaprio and all of that. And it's wonderful. He is here and he is a big piece of it. But, you know, with the film I'm referencing, which is Killers of the Flower Moon, which is currently shooting in Oklahoma, biggest production to date, Martin Scorsese, Apple, we're very excited to host them. But that film, you know, in the health and safety department, for example, there's 90 people working in that department just alone, and a lot of them locals. And so while there may be 12 cast members on screen and a director, there's hundreds behind the camera working to bring that to life. And particularly legislatively, as Harry pointed out, you know, we're constantly trying to have to break the stigma of it's not just Hollywood coming to town, it's an industry. It's the same thing as a convention popping up, oil and gas, any of those other trades, it's exactly the same thing. And so, yes, we've had to really work to educate that this is real jobs, real people, local spend, not just a spotlight and an actor.
Well, and it's,
I'm sorry.
Oh, Harry, I'm glad that you mentioned that interconnectedness piece, and Yusuf as well, just looking at how it really not only connects the different career programs and pathways within career and technical education, but also just being able to see it come together and show students what that interconnectedness looks like in the world outside of just their school programs.
I think like an exciting thing that's coming out of having our incentive and the business growing here in Oklahoma is that it's also giving voices to stories that may have not found their way to the entertainment business. So we already have Reservoir Dogs that came out of here. That's a unique voice coming from Oklahoma, and it's awesome, right? It's really getting out there, and it's taking the voices here in Oklahoma and those stories and putting it out there. And they're part of using that film incentive. Now we have a television series filming here that's creating jobs that will sustain over a period of time as it's successful to have those jobs reoccurring and help train our crew. And we're going to get to that at some point, but like training crew and having the workforce to be able to make those things and to build that is such an important thing of what we do.
Well, and I think this is an appropriate time to address Diane's question from the chat, since we've mentioned the workforce and apprenticeships, but Diane Walker is in California, and she mentions that we have been working to create relationships with our local film commission for student work-based learning. We are an area of lots of location shooting, also Transformers, Marvel, et cetera, at Edwards, AFB, among others, but not much other in the way of the film and TV industry. What tips do you have for us to cement that for our students? And that can be anyone on the panel can jump in and share to that.
I think I'll try to tackle first, and I would love for others to please add. But yes, so this is, as mentioned, this is having this apprenticeship program as a part of the rebate is a little bit of a newer requirement now, and we're navigating that. We have gotten requests in the past from certain educators at different universities looking to plug in their students for opportunities. We welcome we welcome educators to contact us and ask. A lot of times it's going to be dependent on the production itself, et cetera. But with this new apprenticeship program and added focus on this, one thing we offer is our Oklahoma Production Directory. And what that is, it's a free database where students, whoever's interested, whether it's the crew member who is most seasoned to a student who's currently in a film school learning, we invite them to register themselves in this directory in the category of field for their interest. So when we do start getting requests for interns or PAs, we can direct those productions to the listings in this directory. That's one thing I would highly suggest. And particularly here in Oklahoma, with different workshops through Metro Tech popping up, FEIO, other film organizations, we invite them to list those credits as part of their application. If they're worried that they don't, well, I haven't worked on a TV series yet, I don't know what to list. Well, put the workshop you attended, put the classes you're currently in. It's one of the most visible ways to market yourself. And this is kind of a newer piece we're going to be working on as a film office too. So we're open to any ideas. I know some of the other panelists too, between their workshops, are also keeping rosters of students. And I think across the board here in Oklahoma, there is going to be an integrated focus on incorporating the students from the tech centers and other programs and creating a link to these productions as they're coming in.
I know that I have key partners here that are in this room with me, that this is where I started. So as an educator that came in from teaching high school and at charter schools, when I came into the career tech program, my biggest strength to get me started and help me build the vision of the connection was Cindy Friedemann as my administrator, who really helped started connecting me, who understood what I did and what I wanted to build. And she's one that really connected us with deadCenter Film Festival and and several directors actually brought the directors that I ended up filming many things to this day with, where some of our biggest brands, what we did with DreamWorks and Hasbro, Mattel and Lego and all these brands came out of Cindy Friedemann as my administrator, who hooked me up with Kyle Roberts early. And then we just made that explode. And then the Oklahoma Film Office, when Tava came in as the director, I had just finished my first short with my students and realized how vital it was to have our students. All the students on those film sets are working professionals today that were on that film set. And when I realized the turn point and the spark that came out of that, I was like, well, we're doing this forever. Like, we're always going to be plugged into movies and professionals and making this happen. So I went to Tava and said, here's what I learned on this film set. Here's what I know we need. Here's what I need to get our program to, including in that early conversation for sound stages, because that particular director, she's an executive director now for the FBI series, the Dick Wolf production now. That was her directorial debut, and she has a TV series that she wants to shoot, but she needed a sound stage. So I went to Tava way back then. Do we have any sound stages? How can we get sound stages here in Oklahoma? And that was, I don't know, 7 years ago. And then deadCenter Film Festival, when we're talking about networking and knowing and plugging into the filmmakers and people you know, deadCenter Film Festival was a key place for me to be able to go to, because they would show these films. I get to see the local filmmakers who were making really good stuff. Not everything was good in my book, but I went to the ones that I go, ooh, I like that film and that style. I want to go talk to that director. That's something I think I can plug into. I also went after directors that were commercially making things that maybe already had their first distributed movie that had a certain level of success and they were starting their business. Was a great place for me to plug in my students early. But a lot of that networking, and it's networking is the key thing to get plugged in. You've got to show up to places, you've got to support others to get to be known. And that's what we do every single time we're helping and we're on a film. Either we're helping local filmmakers that are going to, be making their next big thing, and we want to be there at the start with them, because that's on the ground level. And deadCenter allowed me to make those connections with directors and upcoming producers and people that were established that were coming to the film festival that we could plug in and find out what the next thing that they're going to do, and can we get our students involved.
And I just want to tack on something, and you guys can probably speak more to this, but through the chat, it's like sparking some things. I'm like, oh yeah, this has happened before. But yeah, I mean, one thing we've seen to work successfully is a lot of the career tech centers can also serve as film locations. And in doing that, can interweave students into being a part of that process. When films are looking for hospitals, for example, a lot of times there's nursing programs that have these rooms and things that look like that. And so a lot of the tech centers here have been open to film and allowed those productions to film there. So interweaving your students into some of that is a key idea. And I believe it's Eastern Oklahoma Tech. Their students actually host an annual film festival every year called Clean Shorts, which is really great. It's student run and student driven. So to Harry's point, if you're trying to network, curate, and curate opportunities with film and for film, starting a film festival at your tech center could be an interesting way to do that for sure.
Don't just be a taker, by the way. That's kind of my key thing. It's every partnership that I'm working with, every director, deadCenter, or even the Oklahoma Film Office, I'm always trying to find a way that we can leverage what we have when he's talking about locations and things to help them, or however, whatever we need to do to be able to help our other members or other advisory members. That is most important to me. I just don't want to say, what can you give me? And so my success is the key to being able to figure out what that puzzle is for each partnership that we have. What can we give you? And then how can you help us? And it's a two-way street. I think a lot of other people that aren't having that success have only figured out the formula of what can you give me? And that only goes so far. You know, that's not long-lasting partnerships.
All right. And anyone else want to address that question?
I think both Yusuf and Harry covered the gamut of what I would have said. Thanks for the lovely shout out, Harry. But yeah, if there are local film festivals that already exist, that can always be a really great partnership where you're not having to come up with all new programming. But certainly having some organic contest or celebration within your organization it's that endpoint, it's that tangible result of something, which helps people visualize kind of the pre-scramble to get to that point. Like I said earlier, when we started, it was so filmmakers in Oklahoma, when there was a small industry, very small, could talk to each other, and they could make those connections and see who they liked working with. Because the other thing we really haven't talked about yet is what a day on set is like, what a production day looks like, and how grueling that can be. And you want to be working with people that know their stuff and that you like to work with. So again, it goes back to partnerships. It all ties back to partnerships, whether it's org to org or it's peer to peer. So maybe that'll springboard some ideas for you there.
Awesome. Well, and Karen mentions in the chat, she says, great idea about utilizing Oklahoma career tech centers for hospital settings for filming. That is brilliant. I'd never even thought about that, but that's so on point. And I remember visiting a school in Oklahoma. Cindy, you may have to help me with this. What's Brady's school?
Oh, that would be Autry Tech in
Yes.
Enid, Oklahoma.
Okay, yes, and their theme of being the hub, being that workforce center development, that plays right along with that. Why not make every career tech center that hub where people automatically think to go to them when they have these needs?
The other thing that I've seen occur is when the film location needs something, even if it's on site, a lot of times the career tech might have it. Maybe it's a police car. Maybe it's some equipment that they can configure for the set. So there's a lot of ways to partner. I'd like to also mention that the growth, the organic growth that you can see in Oklahoma, this is the exciting time, because there's so much going on. It's super exciting. I've noticed, everybody, Career Tech has a lot of leaders, so everyone has just rushed in and, to do their thing and to make it happen, and to partner. So we've got a lot of leaders in the state that are willing to engage. But back in the day when deadCenter was really one of the few things going on, and I think Twister, the movie Twister maybe had been produced a few years earlier. I got to go to deadCenter #2, Alex. And I wish they had t-shirts. I wish I had a t-shirt from deadCenter 2. But now I think you're up to deadCenter 20.
We're looking at 22 in 2022.
22. And this industry just has so many opportunities for all the areas of career and technical education. And Harry was the one that was really preaching at Metro Tech and saying that to us. He said, Cindy, we could turn this campus into a film set. And he was talking about all the different professions that could be engaged in the industry and have really good income and solid work. And I do believe that if you've not worked in the industry, which I have not, it does seem like the Secret Service, and they have their own language. But what career tech program doesn't have their own unique language? Metro Tech has an aviation program, and then I'm going to share this and then I'll turn it back to Rachel. But we have an aviation program, and most of you have probably flown, maybe not recently, but when you get on that plane, you got one pilot, one co-pilot, and then you have like 100 people to make sure it's safe for you to fly, whether they're repairing the plane, whether they're running the traffic control, whether they're making the equipment. But that's the film industry. It's huge, and there's so much opportunity. During COVID, what did we all do? The first thing we did in COVID, we all went home, hunkered down and watched Tiger King, which, by the way, kind of put Oklahoma on the map. I don't know if in a good way.
Better or worse.
But anyway, okay, thank you, Rachel. I think I've said all I need to say.
Oh, I have to say, if it hadn't been for COVID, I would have never watched Tiger King. However, I couldn't stop. I'm like, this is a train wreck and I can't stop watching it. All right, so the next question, and Cindy, we'll be starting with you on this one. Where is Oklahoma focusing their workforce development efforts to meet the demand?
Well, as I just mentioned, all the career techs are engaging. They're very interested in it. We see leadership popping up from different groups. Yusuf mentioned we needed thousands of workers, and he mentioned a three-legged stool. Incentives to incent the films to be produced here, infrastructure in order to produce, and then the workforce to do it. And we see lots of efforts springing up. We know that the Oklahoma Film and Training Academy at Green Pasture Studio has some training programs. They accessed some of the CARES funds that came through the feds, and they put quite a few people through their program. Prairie Surf Studios is offering a lot of training programs, opportunities, and along with needing the production pieces, we need storytellers. So Prairie Surf is also leading some of those types of training programs. Reagan was filmed, the movie Reagan, which I don't believe is out yet, was filmed in the city of Guthrie, Oklahoma. So Meridian Technology Center has gotten involved. We really, I think, when I think about how the oil and gas industry just exploded in a previous decade, I feel like that's what this industry is doing. So it's not one place and one team that's doing it, it's many. But I would have to say that what Harry has done with Yusuf and Alex and Kathy and another person at Metro Tech, Lori Lyons, I feel like what has been happening is probably the most orderly approach in terms of hitting the workforce needs. But there's room for everybody in this. I'll turn it over to someone else that would like to chat about it.
Alex, do you want, what in your area where you guys are starting to create that curriculum?
Yeah, so when we became a year-round organization, we initially threw our focus behind some of these secondary education pieces, but now that we have several different institutes and places of authority to help train the workforce once you have graduated, we have focused our efforts more on K through 12 space and feeding the start of the pipeline, getting kids interested, showing them the path forward, the multiple paths forward. Because if you like to do hair, you may rather do that on a film set than for random people, or whatever. So we really, I said we inspire, and that is the piece where we feel like we're most at home and able to navigate a little more effectively. And that grew out of both, we have a statewide education tour that in normal years we're in schools and we're teaching soft skills through, we want you to pitch us a movie and you have to incorporate these two elements. So you have 5 minutes, go talk with your friends, come and pitch it to us. But where this folds into everybody else really is at deadCenter University, because none of that means anything if there's not an end goal in sight. And so what it does is it takes the inspiration piece from being in the classrooms and saying, okay, if you're interested, here's a next step. And the next step is this free program. It's a 2-day intensive. It's really cool. And so if your appetite is even there, go do this. And then Harry and the team just put together such a wonderful program that exposes students to all the different facets. And then from there, we can point them to, okay, is your next step Metro Tech? Is it concurrent enrollment? Is it one of the community colleges? Is it going to LA? Are you the next Quentin Tarantino? And we just found you. And pointing them on pathways and continuing to support. So on the flip side of that, the festival is really there to celebrate when people make it and do what they love to do. And to continue that cycle of, okay, yeah, this can also be fun, even though it's hard work. But we consider ourselves more of that hub, that center, if you will, of what everybody else is doing in the state, and that connecting people to it. And we've really, no better place have we seen that than with deadCenter University.
I really think the K through 12 thing is going to be the key to our future of what we have at Career Tech, because, coming from theater and musical theater and all the music stuff that I did growing up, there was always an outlet for me, right? There was always community theater, there was Tulsa Opera, there was the productions in my school where I could do those things. There's dance classes all over the city, but there's really and so there's pathways for those types of students to find themselves creatively, but there hasn't necessarily been up to this point a great pathway for filmmakers, right? And to kind of be able to take those types of creatives that want to make the moving frame happen, or the photographers, or even you've got the storybook artists and the animators. And so it's like for us to have that level of engagement when they get to the Career Tech age, juniors, seniors, and on, and to adults, we really need to have that wave of understanding and a place for them to understand that part of what we do, the art, the capture, filming, the being able to be a part of a crew and a team. And so I think moving forward, as we've talked about building our industry, it starts K through 12. It has to be there. It has to be part of the curriculum at some level. And so, there's the Oklahoma Film Institute is really also another entity that is new in Oklahoma that's creating this curriculum, not only for career techs to build in so the hair and makeup know, like, oh, here's a curriculum that teaches me how to do that job for film, or Film 101 course to get everybody to know how to be a production assistant. But it also is finding that curriculum in the hands of the younger group so that they're already coming in with that knowledge. I mean, knowledge is power. So the stronger student that comes in that's had that experience, the better student I'll have on the end tail of what I'm doing.
Hi, this is Kathy, and I'd like to just tag on to that, since we're talking about successful training programs. Alex has mentioned that deadCenter University has Harry. I've been involved with deadCenter University since 2016, and this is like as Alex stated, this is a partnership program that was birthed by deadCenter Film, and it is a 2-day intensive high school film program where students learn about all the aspects of filmmaking process through interactive sessions. So they're learning from industry professionals who give their time every year to help inspire these young minds. My involvement is really on the planning and relationship building side. And of course, with its brainchild, Harry Wallahan, and he may want to weigh in with some of his comments, but I would just say the success of this program really comes from 3 areas, well, 4 really. First of all, the award-winning filmmakers that provide the hands-on instruction. And these aren't, college teachers, these aren't, or high school teachers, these aren't folks that, have learned about filmmaking as a education, but are actually, these are the people that are out making the films. With Harry's knowledge of and interactions with these folks, and then just through the year as we do networking, we're learning of others. They're very happy to come on board and share what they know. As I mentioned, with Harry being the brainchild, he designs these sessions. So to help the student really understand how a film is made from beginning to end, there are different scenes that we set up. So they move from area to area, and they may be learning different concepts about actually how a film is put together, but also the aspects behind what, as a or as a moviegoer, you may not pay attention to, like lighting and sound and different things that are going on. And then thirdly is teaching in spaces that replicate filmmaking and using real equipment to show what actually happens on a real production set. Fourth, marketing the program with branded content with the deadCenter Film Partnership. So students get to attend the festival, first of all, free, from around the state, no matter where they're at. We've even had a couple of students 2 years in a row come from Kansas. So it's really reaching out to all of the schools all over Oklahoma to be a part of this. And the program has grown. Alex may be able to say early on what the numbers were, but we raised the number to maximize about 70 students in the program. And we've had 70 students register. This last year through the pandemic, it was a little bit lower because we had trouble reaching our schools, but it was an incredible year because we actually had, we taught the program on a real production set at Green Pasture Studios, who we partner with. So that's my information on the successful program as deadCenter University. And I may just also speak for the Film Education Institute of Oklahoma, FEIO. They are incentivizing our career techs with standardized curriculum. And so that what everybody is teaching is standardized from state, from across the state. We don't have one program that's teaching something that might be a little bit different than the other. So that is, I think, still kind of in the prototype timeframe. But they've had some success in a couple of the programs that they've already been teaching. So that's Harry or Alex might be able to speak more to FEIO.
I'm going to let Harry speak to FEIO, but I wanted to tack on to what Kathy had said. deadCenter Film is a nonprofit, and we are a very lean operating nonprofit. And so when we formed deadCenter University, our max capacity was about 25 students. And so to be able to grow it to 70 every year has been incredible, but we would not have been able to do that without Metro Tech's resources either. So in addition to bringing in this next step piece and really connecting students with the hands-on learning opportunities, there were other ways that provided value. to the partnership. So when you're thinking about ways to join others in your community, you can think about some of these non-tangibles. For a nonprofit, having a program alongside an accredited entity is great. It's a process and a procedure we didn't have to go through. And I'll tell you, our staff right now, we have a full-time staff of 3 people. So to be able to have even, a little bit of the time of the Metro Tech team every year to focus in on deadCenter University and how we can make it even stronger has been that part of that secret sauce, I think.
Yeah, deadCenter's been a total team effort to make that happen, on any level. Sometimes I'm the big picture guy that's talking to the filmmakers, but I'm not always the person that can organize it and get the times of when we need to meet and make things happen. And Kathy has always been awesome and supporting us in that way and the organization of what we're doing and how we're moving forward on things. I'll kind of touch base about the Film Institute of Oklahoma. It's really new. It really came out of one of our companies here in Oklahoma that rented film equipment. And they found the need to get more crew members on particular movies. They needed to find that talent. And in order to take people and get them and with their equipment to train them so that they could fill the jobs that were rapidly expanding. And so that really was kind of a spin-off thing that came from that idea of having those workshops and things. And it's expanded more and more into now creating curriculum that they can share. So you taking the filmmakers that they've worked with and the people they brought into the workshop and taking in all their advice here on those levels, kind of our top crew level, and then building out that knowledge and making that curriculum for each area. And so I all find it really valuable. I mean, a lot of the curriculum that I'm working in the film area is stuff that I've just acquired from myself being on set and filmmakers and the way the needs of what needs to happen from a production assistant and trying to gather. But to have another institute that's really gathering all the minds and all that information is going to be very helpful for me as a teacher. And I'm looking forward to implementing that in our class this year. So we're going to be kind of a pilot, one of their pilot programs that are implementing that curriculum. So that's kind of what the Oklahoma Film Institute is really reaching out across all levels to propagate that, to help build up our crew, whether we're doing short-term, long-term courses, or even reaching into the high schools and into the K through 12 in those areas as well.
So Harry, you may want to speak more to your digital cinema program and your expansion of it.
Yeah, so I think, the success for our program has been on sets, hands-on in the field with industry partners. And so, some of what I say with our career tech students, I think a place to start to tell that story is really to say, had a student just gone to their high school and didn't come into our program, they would have had on their resume, it would say the Dollar Tree. Right? They worked at the Dollar Tree and they graduated. But instead, I can think of several students that they would have these properties on their resumes. They would have DreamWorks, Trolls, Disney, National Geographic, Hasbro, Netflix, Mattel, Lego, Lionsgate Film. They might have 4 feature films to 3 feature films in those 2 years' times. And that's the resume now. Guess what? Dollar Tree is not even on their resume anymore, right? So, and then those students, before they even left the program, a lot of those ones, the more they were involved in projects, already had a job before they left our program. And that was because of the networking, who they got to work with, and then who hired them. Actually, the most hires in my program come from other students. That's another student that already has their foot in the door from a job that maybe we got our foot in the door with, like, say, Telemundo from 5 years ago. And then we would propagate that. All of a sudden now Telemundo is almost all our students running that place. And another student just got a phone call the other day saying, hey, we need another video editor and another person to do this. And they made their resume and are sending it in. So it propagates itself. Another example is a visual effects studio, Matt Gardaki's company here. And when we walk in that door, all his employees are our students. but that propagated from the classroom, right? They started doing visual effects work for some of these brands, for Mattel, Lego, and cut their teeth, so to speak, on the technology and doing commercial work in the class, not after the fact. Not like, oh, now I graduated class, I'm going to go do work. No, they were doing real work in the classroom. And that was really essential for them to be able to step into a visual effects company and bring something, and already have that experience of working with at that level. And so they hired their friend, they hired their next friend, and before you know it, the whole office is full of all our students that did those jobs with Disney and Mattel and Lego, and we're part of that. So that's been a success, that key partnership with industry. Students will tune me out in class after a while, right? They hear my voice every single day, and I learn that really quick. And so then they go to the set, and they may say exactly what I told them the day before, but they're like, Wallahan, did you hear this? I was like, yeah, I told that 2 days ago to you, remember? And they're like, oh yeah. But when they heard it from a partnership, that person who's leading that professional thing, then it clicks. So you've got to have it. If it's only in the classroom, you're going to be missing out on that moment of when something clicks for them. It's got to be out in the field. It's got to be hands-on.
Harry, that resonates with me. When I was a culinary arts teacher, that anytime a guest speaker came in, they could say the exact same thing I've told them. And then suddenly it's just like, Miss, did you hear? And I'm like, I'm not even going to bother pointing it out that I've already told you this a zillion times. Those partnerships are key. And I'm sure it's the same with parents. I'm not a parent, but when I tell my nieces and nephews something, it resonates and it just goes one ear on out the other with their parents. So. All right, now Cindy, do you want me to keep going, or what's the time frame?
Well, I feel like we want to respect the time of the panelists and also of the guests that are sitting in with us. So I would defer to the panelists about what they're, maybe have a final statement from everybody or whatever you'd like them to do, Rachel.
That sounds great. So we'll just let each person, if you would like to jump in and just share any closing thoughts that you have. And Yusuf, we haven't heard from you in a while. Do you want to start us off?
Sure. I can kick us off. And something I've taken from today, I've heard several people say, is how key partnerships are. And so I will end on a little bit of that note and say that we're so thankful for our partners and our fellow panelists here today. For example, I mean, if you're looking, I know there was the question earlier about ways to involve students, ways for tech centers to collaborate with film commissions and really get involved. Last year, Metro Tech, we saw a need for health and safety and COVID training. We partnered with Metro Tech to address that need. They immediately implemented a film health safety course related to COVID for people to take to grow the workforce. Also in 2020, deadCenter, major kudos, took an entire film festival virtually. Normally we program a full day of education courses when it's physical, but when we went virtual, we were able to present 12 virtual classes related to costuming, location scouting. Personally, I think it's one of the best things we've ever done, and it's a testament to deadCenter and also the instructors who put them together. Instead of having a course on location scouting, we were able to take the class to the actual location sites and have the scouts show them how to do things. Same with stop motion animation and all of that. So I would just say we value partnerships from Metro Tech, from deadCenter, and moving forward as you're looking for ways to implement things in film in your classes. If you've got a cosmetology class, construction, you mentioned culinary arts, find a way to incorporate film into that. Look to your film commission, look to your film festival. We may know the people locally who are doing that trade in film and could offer some advice or insight on how that career may be able to adapt to the film industry. And at least here in Oklahoma, our film commission, we want to be a resource to everyone, a connector. And so that's just what I would encourage.
Going off of what Yusuf said, I would also say that I am only as good as my partnerships are. And so that also means with my administrators, as well as our partners outside of what we do. And so the thing that I've made a recent a recent like agenda is to make sure that we talk about what we're doing and make sure that people know what we're doing, because sometimes we just get so into our lane of what we're doing, we're forgetting to promote ourselves. We're promoting everything around us, but then people don't know like what you're doing and how you're doing it and who's helping you do that. And so I would say, don't forget to promote yourself and your programs and the things that you're doing and those people around you. And then those partnerships are everything. So I'm totally only successful for those that have supported me and helped me do and make it possible what our students do.
I'm going to answer Rachel's question in the chat. Because she asks, what program pathway cannot be connected to the film industry? And she can't think of any. I think that's a perfect example of the value of getting creative, both with your partnerships, but also how you think about what you currently have. I genuinely can't think of any program that you can't somehow point at the end of it to the film industry. If it's accounting, if it's computer science, if it's music composition, like even anything STEM can really be applied here. We have a studio here called Boiling Point that has really made a name for themselves by designing CGI characters. And the leader of that, his name's Ryan Belgart, has become fairly successful in the world of directing because he's been able to pull off this technology piece and has been hired to do several niche films that sell much better overseas. But there's value there. And they're definitely, and it's my responsibility on the inspiration piece to inspire you to think creatively about how these partnerships can look, but make sure that they're very integrated. Because all of these pieces do talk to each other and it mirrors the atmosphere that you would see on a film production, because it is such a collaborative effort. I think we've spent a lot of time talking about partnerships and not so much the other pieces, because it really is, the magic is in how you partner and collaborate. And the rest of it is teaching those technical pieces and knowledge. Having that knowledge in the room is just as important as the partnership. But the creativity, be creative.
I would say that you need that one person who has the tenacity to get the planning at your school or your organization started. You've heard this, everybody wants to go to the party, everybody has an idea or a food item to take to a potluck, but nobody's planning it. We can talk all day long and have great ideas, but if it's not you, maybe it's somebody that you designate who's very organized and tenacious and will just keep on it. So I would just say, be the planner and keep it moving.
I think you're right, Kathy. And because I know that really once we brought Kathy on to help with this relationship, it went to a whole new level. You know, we had all the pieces in place. We were working well together, but when Kathy came in, all of a sudden we had brochures, we had advanced flyers, we had programs with bios with all the artists involved and the producers, and she kind of bird dogs us to make sure that we do that. And so I think that's a really important piece to it, and it sure changed how we went about things at Metro Tech and with our partners. I want to say one more other thing, Rachel, and I'll just kind of throw it out here to the panel, but I feel like we should take this show on the road next year. The NCLA convention will be in Cape Cod, and I think we should have this group talk, because the industry partnership piece applies to any instructor advisory committee, and the industry partners that we have here could really help inspire other partners. And then also, as Alex said, in answer to Rachel's comment, there isn't anything that doesn't tie to film. So all of the instructional programs across the nation could benefit from seeing how their programs could link to film. Maybe we could poach some great talent from some other states instead of the other way around.
Which, by the way, for anyone listening in, one of the things that Cindy said about sharing out contact information is that you cannot contact Harry to poach him for your program. So those are the rules. Cindy, I love that idea. That could be a pre-conference workshop.
Okay.
Which, you know, that would be, that would be fantastic. Yeah, we'll have to talk to, I don't get to make those decisions, but we'll talk to Tom and the board about that. That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much to each of you. This has been so much fun and so inspiring and so much great information. I'm sure that the folks tuning in feel the same way. And thanks again. I'm going to stop the recording now, but for those of you who are tuning in, please feel free to share this with your community, because this truly is something that not only the career tech ed programs can utilize, but also industry partners can get some ideas from this as well. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.